So, thank you for the wonderful introduction, Mackenzie. Greetings from India to everyone and the Women Who Code community. I I'm Stuti Sehgal, and I'll be walking you all through the wonders of computer vision and its growing importance today. We will be touching upon some early computer vision machine learning interference projects as well, and my first research revolving around the same. So let's dive straight into it, and I hope you'll have fun along the way. So, coming to what is all this hype about computer vision and OpenCV, and what is OpenCV? So, computer vision basically is the field of computer science that focuses on replicating parts of the complexity of human vision system and enabling computers to identify and process objects in images and videos in the same way that we humans do. That's pretty amazing. Basically, you are giving your computer the ability to visualize images and videos just like we do via our human vision. So, when did it all began? Computer scientists first started thinking about vision about 50 years ago. And as we are still working on it half a century later, it has become one of the fastest growing and most exciting areas of computer science. Until recently, computer vision only worked in limited capacity. One of the driving factors behind the growth of computer vision is the amount of data we generate today. Basically, it's petabytes of data, terabytes of data, huge amounts of data is what I mean to say, that is then used to train and make computer vision better. It has applications in many industries such as self driving cars, robotics, automation, augmented reality, face detection, in fact, to name a very few. Now, coming to what OpenCV is. So, OpenCV is a very important image processing library that was created by Intel and maintained by Willow Garage. It's an open source library and it's free, and it's available in three languages: C, C, and Python. So, let me introduce you to a couple of facts, couple of interesting facts and unexpected ones. Did you know that computer vision AI is now more than 99% accurate? To be honest, let's talk about the power of computers these days. So, did you know that IBM supercomputer Deep Blue recently, in fact, won a chess match against the world's best chess player? So, isn't that unprecedented? And one of the challenges that these days we face in computer vision includes that most image processing and computer vision works are deep learning based. So, to truly understand the concepts of computer vision, one has to be inept with image processing techniques. Coming to the surprising fact, which is why actually one should have computer vision in their skill set. So according to the market and markets report, the computer vision market is expected to rise by $17.4 billion by 2024. Isn't that amazing and something that you should definitely invest in? So let's talk about top 5 computer vision techniques and algorithms changing the world's perception, and take a look at computer vision techniques that are being widely used today. First is image classification, basically differentiating and determining how each image category will look on the code level for a computer and how it would actually understand the features. So that is what constitutes image classification. Coming to the next category would be object detection. Object detection basically, this is the job of defining the objects in an image, labeling them and outputting into bounding boxes. So this varies from the method above because we're trying to classify many objects instead of one. That is how these two methods vary from each other: classification and detection. Third, we have object tracking, which refers to tracking one or more moving objects in any given scene. This has been applied to monitor real world interactions. The fourth one that we'll be looking at is semantic segmentation. Segmentation is an essential part of a computer vision that divides the entire groups of pixels that can be labeled and classified. So, to be more specific, this is a really important part of pixel plays in a given image. Coming to the fifth, instance segmentation. Instance segmentation categorizes all the various instance classes. If we have a complex scene with many overlapping objects and backgrounds, like over here, we must classify all the objects, identify the differences, and see how they relate to one another. Moving on, let's talk about the computer vision tasks in detail, like we just saw in the previous video. So, first of all, let me give you a head start. So, where all do we actually use computer vision? You scan barcodes to make payments frequently, almost daily. Secondly, you see touchdowns being made in football and you get excited by it. Third would be you see third would be you see that Google Street Views are also an integral part of how computer vision plays behind the scenes. So let's talk about computer vision tasks in a broad aspect. First would be object classification, object identification, object detection, object segmentation, and object recognition. So basically, classification is like making your computer understand that, okay, the pointy ears belong to a cat. So next time you throw an image of a cat to the computer after it has learned and trained via the previous images of a cat, it will know that, okay, this is the image of a cat and not identify it as something else. So, and coming to object recognition and object detection, for example, over here, by seeing the pointy ears, the computer would know that, okay, this is a cat, the long tail belongs to the dog, and the tiny yellow one would definitely be a duck. So that is why it would identify different objects in the same image. Coming to video motion analysis, pose estimation and gesture recognition uses computer vision. Now, gesture recognition is something that we're going to talk about a lot in the further slides, but let me give you a head start. So, gestures can basically originate from any part of your body. Mainly, we study the face or the hand. That was the layman term language. Coming to the technical terms of it, gesture recognition is basically interpreting human gestures via mathematical algorithms. And the next part would be scene reconstruction. Basically, it is recreating a 3D model of a scene inputted through images or videos. Coming to top courses for learning computer vision, over here I'll be talking about the beginner level courses, and the complexity increases as we'll keep on moving further. So the most beginner basic and beginner friendly course would be computer vision fundamentals with Watson and OpenCV on the edX platform, that lasts for up to 14 weeks, and you'll cover all the basic ideas on how to process images with the help of AI tools. The second course is convolutional neural networks, which is what I actually which is what gave me my head start in computer vision. This is a wonderful course by Andrew Ng by Stanford University on Coursera that lasts up to 4 weeks. But I pretty much, you can wind up, once you catch on interest, you can wind up it in a week. So the prerequisites were knowledge of neural networks, and at the end you'll end up with the building convolutional neural networks, which is very very important when you're learning computer vision. The third would be deep learning advanced computer vision on Udemy, which you can finish up in less than a day. And that would give you a head start on how to create object detection systems. That is how to know if a person, how to make your computer know if a person is wearing a mask or not, and how to detect such anomalies. Coming to the intermediate level of courses for learning computer vision would be deep learning in computer vision A to Z on Udemy, that lasts for again less than a day, and it would give you a breakthrough into the world of artificial intelligence. That's pretty amazing. And the fifth course that I'm going to be talking about is Python project Pillow. Now, Pillow is another library, another imaging library along with OpenCV that is being covered by University of Michigan on Coursera, and this is a self-paced course. It is an intermediate level course. This is what we've been talking about in this slide. And it gives you an introduction to third party APIs along with the knowledge about how to apply optical character recognition to images and identify text, faces, etc. using OpenCV. And the most advanced courses that we're going to talk about right now are computer vision certification, again on Coursera. That is a very lengthy course for 2 months, but definitely worth it because it gives you a strong foot into research and teaches you about the whole idea that goes behind self-driving cars and factory robots, and also give you hands-on on online labs using MATLAB. And the final course, that is actually a wonderful nano degree program by NVIDIA on Udacity, that lasts for 3 months and has all the prerequisites that one could have. But it's you should definitely go for it, because because it teaches you self-driving car navigation and drone flight. And it ends up not only teaching you convolutional neural networks, but also a combination of them with recurrent neural networks, so that you know how to do video analysis, video and image processing, and everything basically that computer vision could entail. Coming to what we talked about earlier, what is gesture recognition? So basically, gesture recognition is a topic in computer science with the goal of interpreting human gestures via mathematical algorithms. Now, many researchers have proposed numerous methods for gesture recognition systems over the decades. Recognized gestures are converted into commands and applied as input to perform tasks in real time. There are two types of gestures basically: the offline gestures and the online gestures. The online gestures are direct manipulations like scaling or rotating, and the offline gestures basically are processing after the user has interacted with the object. Example, the gesture to activate or make a selection on your smart TV menu. Coming to vision based gesture recognition technologies, now there are basically classified into two: model based and image based methods. In the further slides, we'll be looking at pretty amazing projects on image based methods, but right now let's talk about model based as well. So, model based methods basically try to create a three-dimensional model of the user's hand or face and use this for recognition in the further times. So, basically, a real hand is interpreted as a collection of vertices and lines in the 3D mesh version, and that is what the software uses to, as uses the relative position and interaction to basically infer the user's gesture. Coming to what image based methods are, image based techniques basically detect the gesture by first capturing pictures of a user's motions. So that would be 2D during the course of a gesture itself. And hand gesture recognition can further itself be classified into three categories, three types. First being electronics based. So you all see the camera, the emitter over here. What this emitter is basically is the electronic hardware which sends out rays, and that is what is used to sense the proximity of human body or a body part. That can be measured by then sensing this electrical field. This is used to measure the distance of a human hand or any other body part, as that matter, from an object. The second technology, which is pretty common these days, is glove based. This requires use of hand gloves equipped with sensors and fiber optic cables running down the back of the hand. So, light pulses are created when the fingers bend, and light leaks through the small cracks and losses are registered from there. This technology is mainly used in Microsoft Kinetics Data Glove. And coming to the third type, that would be marker based. So use of this involves use of color markers on fingers or wrists, but this is pretty complex due to multiple markers. One of its application is robots that can assist in patient rehabilitation by reading gesture values. And I'll be talking about mainly four applications of hand gesture recognition over here, because even though there's a plethora of applications, but let's focus our interest into these four. So the first one being aid to physically challenged. Now this is a pretty societal application. Over here, machine wheelchairs these days are coming with gesture based systems. So all the user needs to do is lightly move the hands on the panel at the armrest of the wheelchair. This will then control the speed and the direction of the chair, making it very easy for the user. The second would be immersive game technology, like we just saw in the glove based hand gesture recognition type. So basically, this involves in video game consoles such as the Microsoft Xbox with Kinect sensor, where the user is the controller and has to perform all the physical movements that they desire their character in the game to do. The third one would be system controlling. That makes your life very easy. It involves controlling video player, making selections in your smart TV menu, adjusting your audios, or even moving your PowerPoint slides. Coming to the fourth application, which is solution for interaction problems with hardware. Now people suffering with Parkinson's disease, or for that matter people even traveling even on a shaky train, have difficulty locating the cursor and gesture control, can eliminate these limitations posed by input via mouse. These were a couple of research papers. Do not get intimidated. Basically, these are what gave critical breakthrough in the whole field of computer vision, is interference with deep learning, and the in the domain of gesture recognition. So over here, this paper that you see is what gave rise, is the foundation of Microsoft Kinect data glove. And these are other papers that one should definitely go for once exploring computer vision, because these really give you the idea of what already has been done and what all improvements can be done in the domain. Coming to a very interesting and very easy project, in fact this was my very first project. We are going to talk about hand gesture, rock paper and scissors. So I made this project with the affiliation with data science community. So let's talk about the project. There are four parts when you're building a computer vision or machine learning integrated project. The first one obviously being acquiring the data set. So over here, the data set was composed of four classes. Classes as in paper, rock, scissors, and a nothing class in case the user decides to show neither of these symbols. So the data set was self-created, and it was divided into train set and test set images. The second step that we have is pre-processing of images. Over here, what we do is each image is horizontally flipped, resized to 150 cross 150, because as we talk further, we'll be talking about Inception V3 model, which takes the input size of 150 cross 150. And then these images were normalized on a scale of 0 to 255, so that there is unbiased feature scaling across when we are trying to train the model. Before we are feeding all the images to the network, there shouldn't be bias across the features, so that there are correct predictions that are to be made. Now pre-processing of images also is divided into steps. The first one being background removal. Now obviously when you're clicking an image, and even though you just need the rock part or the paper or the scissors part, that is your hand gesture, still you're going to have some background behind. So what background removal means over here, contour detection is a technique provided by the OpenCV library, wherein we can just remove this whole entire blue background, and only the pink rock would be passed, or only the green paper or blue scissors symbol, only the symbols would be passed to the model for predictions as well as for training. And lightning conditions. So over here, like we discussed earlier, we use image based methods, which include 2D gestures, which were extracted from the environment setup. Coming to the third part, which is model training. Now the model that I told you earlier that we had taken was Inception V3 model. Inception V3 is basically a very famous transfer learning model. And what I'll tell you the dynamics of the model. So basically it has three stages. First of all, it's followed by a couple of classifier layers, dense layers, and then after those layers we have the convolutional blocks. Now all these convolutional blocks have names. So over here I've written that I've trained the model till mix 7 layer. By mix 7 layer, I mean that the model was trained for 7 cross 7 convolutions. Like by the end, obviously if I train till all the layers, I would have it ended with a 3 cross 3 convolution. But mostly it's like a trial, it's like a thing that you learn by practice, or and by trying and testing multiple times on across data sets. It also varies on your according to your data set. So for me, I realized that mix 7 layer was the one that was giving me better accuracies. This was followed by the third block of layers, that is the dense layers with ReLU activation function and 256 neural units. So basically over here, this layer is what gives me four output nodes. Why four output nodes? Because I had input four classes: rock, paper, scissors, and nothing. So I need to have my model give me one of these four output. So that is why I have four output nodes. Then it was trained using RMS prop optimizer, and the batch size was 32 and for 100 epochs. That is what it was trained. Coming to the final step, which is the deployment. So deployment of the hand gesture recognition model was a bit of a task among the entire project, and what I had done for the deployment was Streamlit application is how I deployed, and the Streamlit application basically had the H5 weights file of the Inception V3 model. Now this had been deployed on Heroku platform as a service. Now this link over here is actually where the model has been deployed. You can actually go forth and try this out, and I'll assure you, you will get an accuracy of 97.05%. That is pretty good. So over here we can see that the model is recognizing scissors, rock, paper, and then when the user is showing nothing, it's showing that okay, there is no hand gesture input right now. So this is one of the most basic project and most hands-on project that one should definitely try. Coming to one of my first researches, which was actually another form of hand gesture recognition model. So what basically it was, effective sign language recognition would be an aid to physically challenged, as we discussed earlier, and this is what provided me and the fellow researchers motivation to pursue this, because this granted the deaf community expanded tools to express themselves and for communicating with other people and their devices. So over here you see that this is what the final predictions were. We'll come to this later on. I'll properly explain how we got these. So this was a sign language prediction. The research has been published right now at this link. You can go forth and try, go through it. Coming to the research paper, it was rethinking generalization in American Sign Language prediction for edge devices with extremely low memory footprint. Pretty fancy name. Let's come down to the basics of what it actually includes. Is basically American Sign Language real-time image classification. Image classification, basically all the American Sign Language A to Y, barring J, because J has motion required, and we are looking at image and not video over here. So real-time image classification based on computer vision and deep learning model, which is built from scratch, quantized into TinyML for edge deploying on cost sensitive and power constrained microcontroller. So this project basically, the unique the uniqueness was that the deaf community can actually a, it is very cost sensitive, it is cheap, and b, not only is it power constrained, but it also can be easily deployed into their webcams, their phones cameras, so it would be very easy for them to actually interact with people like us. Coming to the experimental setup of the research. So this was the ARM Cortex M7 based microcontroller. Over here, this is the image, this is the proper image of it, and over here you can see that it is predicting all the sign languages. How this is happening is, okay, let's talk about the microcontroller first. So the microcontroller basically has 1 MB of SRAM and 32-bit ARM Cortex. It has a 2 MB flash memory, a clock speed of 400 megahertz. Now, where did we actually have problems? So the problems lied because we had size constraints on the deployment environment. Basically, the model could only have its documentation stated that it could have only a model of 400 KB deployed. That's pretty small. But when we actually tried it out on using TensorFlow Lite model, which is another library, so what happened was that a model of 230 kb also failed to load, and only a model of 220 kb was successfully loaded. So the challenge was getting proper accuracies, deploying a cost effective model, and power constrained, it should also be power constrained, and there were size constraints as well. Let's see how we made full use of it. Coming back to our first step, which is dataset construction. So there were four data sets involved. The first one being SignMNIST dataset from Kaggle, basically 1704 uncropped colored images, and of all the alphabets barring J and Z. So ImageMagick pipeline was used to crop the images to hands only and perform operations like grayscaling, because everybody has different skin colors all across the globe. So we brought it down to grayscaling, resized it to 28 cross 28, and then created 50 plus variations to increase the quantity. Now this was pretty sufficient to have a large variety and give our model sufficient data. Coming to the second data set, which was modified Kaggle ASL data set. Again, it had 24 classes. J, Z, space, and nothing were deleted. So it came down to 24. 87,000 images of dimension 200 cross 200 were used, and each class had 3,000 images, and again it was split into train set and test set. The fourth dataset was actually produced self-produced during the research itself. It was produced by the OpenMV H7 camera dataset by the authors of the paper, and the images were shuffled and split into 10% into 90% training and 10% testing. The images taken were of 240 cross 240 in size, downscaled to 28 cross 28 to maintain uniformity of all the images being trained. And it was, yeah, there's a technique in OpenCV library called interpolation. So we use inter-area interpolation in OpenCV, and the fourth data set was Kaggle ASL modified dataset, which was actually considered as the generalization dataset in this paper, because we need to test our models as to how it would actually perform in real life when the backgrounds are noisy, when nobody is going to crop the images and give it to crop and label the images to give the model for prediction. So this is where we use the data set, the modified data set. Coming to the experimental part, now the proposed architecture was convolutional neural networks, which we've been talking about since the very beginning. It was designed in TensorFlow 2.3, and it had 171,032 trainable parameters. And the chosen optimizer was Adam with its default learning rate. Coming to the next procedure that we had, that is crucial for edge deployment, that was post training procedure and evaluation. So full integer quantization was carried out post training using TensorFlow Lite. Now, what this means is basically all weights and biases of the model were converted from float 32 to int 8 precision, and each weight was quantized to int 8 and was only 1 byte. So the complete size of the quantized model and base was 185 KB. You see, from 171,000 trainable parameters, were all the weights were brought down to 185 KB and loaded to the TensorFlow Lite interpreter, and the test set was used to evaluate the metrics. Let's come to the metrics that we saw, that we observed in our experiment. So these were the metrics. Now let's talk about what the model 1 and model 2 are over here. What we did was compared between two augmentation techniques. Now this is where again OpenCV played a major role. What we did was both these models had the same convolutional neural architecture, same train and test images, and were fully quantized at the same level. But for model 1, we used augmentation techniques like rotation, cropping, and resizing. Whereas for model 2, we used all the 5 interpolation strategies in the OpenCV library, namely internearest, interlinear, interarea, intercubic, and interLangSOS4. And you can see that model 2 had very good accuracies as compared to model 1. So we'll come to the experimental findings. Over here, you can see that the sample predictions, almost all the predictions are correct. A couple of them are wrong, but that's because there was a 99% accuracy. Can't achieve 100%. Anyways, so you can see this was for model 1, and this was what was achieved from OpenCV's interpolation strategies. Over here, you can see that how close all the predictions are, how the true predictions match to what was actually predicted. So the experimental findings to conclude the research were that the interpolation reduces drop in accuracy during quantization for edge deployment. The float 32 inputs and outputs gave best results as compared to the int8 precision, and interpolation augmentation improved classification generalization. So in short, interpolation, which is basically a very normal step in image processing and is very common in OpenCV, might be used to reduce accuracy drop during full integer quantization, and this is a very wonderful thing to use. Coming to we've been talking about hand gesture recognition since a very long time. Let's talk about something new, another type of gesture recognition, which is facial gesture recognition, another pretty interesting project. So over here we have facial emotion recognition, which is another non-contact interface between users and their devices. So the goal of facial gesture recognition is to make machines effectively decipher our human emotions, what we actually express. These days, you might see that many mobile cameras detect smiles to click pictures automatically. Now, that is where facial gesture recognition is playing its role, behind the scenes. You can again, see this project on this link, try it out. So what this project had basically was real-time facial emotions recognition model that was being deployed as a Snapchat filter project. In this, again, there were four main steps. The input data set, there were three input data sets acquired over here. Extended Yale face database, which had six basic emotion classes. Like, even though humans have a plethora of emotions, but all the emotions can be brought down to these six basic emotion classes, being anger, happy, neutral, sad, fear, and disgust. The second data set being Kaggle facial emotion recognition data set, and the third one, which is primarily used for research, was Jaffe data set with only 232 images with Japanese women expressions. So what we did, we tried to make it as diverse and include all the possibilities of all the face structures into this very data set. Coming to the second part, which is a pre-processing of the acquired data set. Now, hard cascading is another technique in OpenCV which was performed to remove background. Like we had contour detection for hand, we have hard cascading in OpenCV to remove background and crop the images to only face, so that they can be used as input for training the deep learning model. And these pre-processed images were again interpolated using intercubic. Last time we did interarea. This time we're talking about intercubic and a size of 48 cross 48. The second step was training the model. So the model again we used was VGG16. It is a 16 layer transfer learning model again. Over here we have convolutional block, which includes convolutional 2D layers, max pooling layers. So what I did was I trained VGG16 till the block 5 convolutional layer, which gave me the best accuracy. And at the end, I had dense layers with four output nodes, because what I used was only four emotion classes out of these. I used angry, happy, neutral, and sad. I dropped fear and disgust because of image bias in during the time of training. All this gave me a generalization of 75%. This might seem less, but believe me, when we are talking about your camera detecting your facial emotions, telling you if you're angry, happy, sad, or what you're actually feeling, this generalization accuracy is at par. And finally, I'd like to conclude. So, thank you everyone for being so patient. I hope you all had fun and that I was able to deliver a memorable pitch. Try to connect with me then. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Suji, for being here today. Absolutely enjoyed your talk. And now, with the last 5 minutes remaining, we open the floor to any questions. So feel free to post them in the chat, and I'm happy to help moderate. And our first question coming in, how can you connect your webcam to OpenCV?
Okay, so connecting webcam from OpenCV, it's actually pretty simple. So once you import computer vision module, so there's this CV2's computer vision's OpenCV's inbuilt function, video capture. Basically, that is what is used to get a video capture object from your webcam. After that, you can set up a infinite while loop and use the read method to basically read the frames that you're getting from your webcam simultaneously. And in case you want to use those frames or capture from the video, you can go for the im show method. All this is included in the OpenCV library.
Great, thank you. And another question prior to that one, how can we resize an image in OpenCV?
Okay, so in OpenCV library, again, there is this function cv2.resize. Basically, what this resize function does is, once we've imported the computer vision library, we pass one, the source image that is to be resized. Second, we pass either the height and width in dimensions being pixels, or their height to width ratio. And then we can pass interpolation, like the 5 interpolations we just discussed. Although passing interpolations is optional.
Great, thank you for that question and answer. And another question just came in, how can you do face detection in OpenCV?
Okay, so pretty interesting question actually. So in order to your face detection system to function, basically, you can say it can be implemented in three major steps. Firstly, obviously, it must detect a face. So once it recognizes that face nearly instantly, so it must take whatever action is required. For example, you may want it to unlock your phone, or like we just discussed, you might want to detect your emotions. So basically, face detection is kind of a broad term for face recognition.
Great. Thank you for that question and that answer. Another couple of questions have come in. What are some facial recognition algorithms?
Okay, so there are three types of facial recognition algorithms. One being the hard cascading algorithm that we just discussed. Basically, that's a machine learning based approach where a cascade function, as the name suggests, is trained from a lot of images, both positive and negative. The other one is eigenfaces. So the eigenface algorithm is basically based and used for face recognition. It is pretty efficient. And third one is Fisher faces. Yeah, these are the three algorithms.
Great. Thank you so much for that answer. Another question, are there any video filters in OpenCV?
I'm sorry. Okay. Are there any video filters? Yeah. Actually, there are many video and image filters in OpenCV. There's thresholding. There's in thresholding we also have binary thresholding, etc. So by that we can adjust the sharpness of any image, which is basically what we even do in those image editing apps. This is what we're talking about OpenCV over here. Then there is smoothing. There is histograms, which is not only used in deep learning based approach, but also in support vector machines in SVMs. Then there is contour detection that we discussed. There is another detection, which is the canny edge detection.
Great. Thank you for that answer. And we have another couple of questions. Does
Oh, wow.
OpenCV have more functions than TensorFlow for images? And do you use OpenCV inside TensorFlow?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, basically, TensorFlow is very broad. It has lots of things. It has Keras. It has many things. So, uh, once you import, see, TensorFlow and compute and OpenCV basically are two separate things. They can be used together, but they have to be imported separately.
Gotcha, that makes sense. We do have a couple of more questions, and as we're conscious of time here, Susie, would you like to share your contact information in the chat? I want to make sure everyone can connect with you for any further questions. That being
Definitely.
said, we probably have time for about one more question. What is the difference between facial recognition and face detection?
Okay, so basically, like I just talked about earlier, so facial, when we're talking about facial recognition and face detection, basically, face detection is again coming back to it is a very broad term for face recognition. So, face detection just means that a system is able to, detect that there is a human face present in an image, in a video, or in a webcam capture. Whereas face recognition is basically confirming that okay, this is your face, and this can be used to confirm identities in many devices these days. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And as we wrap up, I just want to give a huge thank you to Susie for being here today and sharing. As Amand in the chat said, what a great session to kickstart a journey in computer vision. That being said, if you'd like to, you go on ahead and connect with her. So any other questions, feel free to reach out to her directly. That being said, I do invite everyone to check out our next round of sessions. They will get started in just about 5 minutes. And if you are also welcome to go ahead and network, go to our networking tab. If you network with 3+ people to enter and win a Women Who Code t-shirt. And feel free to also check out the expo throughout the conference today. And again, thank you so much, Susie, for being here today and sharing all of your knowledge.
Thank you, Mackenzie. Thank you so much.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye. Have a great day.